Welcome to this brief Bible dive with Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan, and with me, Pastor Nick. We'd love for you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and share this video with anybody that you think would find it really helpful. Today, we're diving into the simple question of why did Moses get his name? Why did Moses, the great prophet and teacher of the law of the Hebrew people, why did he get named Moses? And we're going to ask this question just as a background thought for ourselves. Why did you get your name? Why did you get your name? So we're looking at the first couple chapters of the book of Exodus and the naming of Moses. And, what we know first is that a Pharaoh arose in Egypt who did not know Joseph, meaning he had no affection or positive affiliation with the Hebrew people and how they even got to Egypt in the first place. And so he began to oppress them and enslave them and make them work harder. Eventually, they really started to grow, and he ordered the midwives to start killing the male Hebrew children. But they wouldn't do this. They loved God, they honored God, and so they came up with an excuse that, oh, well, the Hebrew women are so strong they give birth before we even show up to help with the delivery. That went on for a while, but finally in Exodus chapter 1, verse 22, we hear, quote, "Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, 'Every boy that is born to the Hebrews you shall throw into the Nile, but you shall let every girl live.' And then Moses, a Hebrew male, was born. And to save him, his mother placed him in a basket made of reeds and sent him down the river Nile. His older sister Miriam followed to see where he would go. And then he was actually found by the daughter of the Pharaoh while she was bathing in the river. The baby boy was taken to her home and to be raised in the household of the Pharaoh, who probably was the most powerful person on the planet at that time and certainly was incredibly powerful in Egypt, treated as a god walking on the earth. And wouldn't you know it, this is when Moses' older mother, let me try that again. When Miriam, Moses' older sister, who had been tracking Moses going down the river, went up to Pharaoh's daughter and said, "Would you like me to help you find a Hebrew midwife? I'll go find one to help nurse the child." And the daughter, of course, said yes. And it shouldn't surprise us then that Miriam went to Moses' mother, her mother, to help raise Moses. And then in Exodus 2, verse 10, we hear this. "When the child grew up, now that means Moses' biological mother, she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, so she had nursed him this whole time, and she took him as her son. She named him Moses, quote, because, quote, I drew him out of the water." Now, here's where we hit a bizarre little bump in the story. I mean, certainly it's likely that Pharaoh's daughter knew Hebrew. She would have been communicating with the slaves, after all. And so she would have known that Moses sounded like Moshe, a Hebrew word meaning to draw out. And certainly it says it right in that story. She named him Moses because, she said, I drew him out of the water. However, it really would not have made sense for Pharaoh's daughter to give the child a Hebrew name. Because, first of all, they were hiding these male Hebrew children. It would have been a few years beyond this, but it was a secret that he was a Hebrew. And more so, she was an Egyptian, and she was taking him into an Egyptian household to be raised as an Egyptian, a member of the royal household. It actually makes more sense for Moses to have received an Egyptian name than a Hebrew name. And here's the fascinating thing. Moses actually is an Egyptian name and not a Hebrew name. Now, this is, of course, where you're going to say rightly, okay, Pastor Nick, I was with you so far, but it says right there in the Bible that, that thing you just read from chapter 2, verse 10, says right there that she named him this because of the meaning in Hebrew to draw out. And you are absolutely correct. But as we can already tell, Pharaoh's daughter was pretty sharp. She was cunning, and in the most positive sense of that term, she knew that she had saved a male Hebrew baby. She knew that she was defying her father's orders for the babies to be killed. She even sent for a Hebrew midwife to nurse the child. So she gave the boy an Egyptian name, but also that is a homonym. A similar sounding word in Hebrew. This word in Hebrew means to draw out, but still with an Egyptian name. So it's just sort of a coincidence that it could all come together that way. But she knew what she was doing. And then, so moving along, what does Moses actually mean in Egyptian? Well, simply put, Moses means to be born. Well, that doesn't sound all that exciting, does it? Of course, a baby it's growing up, of course it was born. But Moses means to be born, but it's got more to it than that, too, because this name appears in many royal Egyptian names that make reference to Egyptian deities that were celebrated. If a deity was celebrated on, say, the day the child was born, then the child might be named after that deity. Take what might happen here in 21st century North America in a Christian household. You might have a child born on December 25th, and so the child is named Christmas or something of that sense, or Noel might be a name that a child gets as well. And so this would happen with the Egyptians too. A child would be born on a day that was celebrating that deity, and so the child would get the name of the deity plus this sort of Moses piece that would follow as a connection to it. And so we hear names in Egyptian history like Tutmos. Mose is kind of how we bring it into English, but you can kind of see that Mose, like Moses, Tutmos, Fatmos, Amos, Harmoses, and rather interestingly, one other name that really has a lot to do with the story, Ramses. Ramses. See, it's striking because by tradition, Ramses II was the pharaoh that Moses and Aaron went to and shared the message of God to have the Hebrew slaves be freed. Let my people go. Now, the Bible never tells us the name of the pharaoh. Throughout the entire book of Exodus, we never hear the name. It just says Pharaoh. However, based on the evidence in the Bible, archaeology, writings outside of the scriptures, we are pretty sure, at least tradition states, that it was Ramses II who was the pharaoh that eventually Moses would be coming back to. It was actually probably Seti, maybe Seti the first, that was the one that was killing the babies. But Ramses is the one when Moses returns and will wind up facing off with Aaron, facing off to have the slaves freed. And actually, the way to spell Ramses in English kind of shows us a little of this. There's sort of two ways to spell Ramses in English. Some people go, I believe it's Ramses, but that Mses, you can almost see the name Moses in it. Some other people spell it out a little bit more. It's so Ramesses, so that Messes. Again, you can kind of see how it looks it's almost identical to Moses, Moses. What Ramses means is to be born of Ra. So we might actually presume, not for sure, but we might presume that, hey, maybe Ramses II was born, or maybe it was, was born on a day celebrating Ra, the Egyptian deity. It's really, it's interesting also when we think about it that Moses then is just Moses. There is no deity attached to his name. Now, is that because they didn't know what day he was born, because they found him floating down the river? Not sure. Who knows? Maybe it's because we know that Moses would, and this is some of our deeper meaning that wouldn't have been involved in the Egyptian naming, but, later on in the story, Moses would encounter the living God who did not allow the divine name to be known or spoken. Simply, who do I say sent me? Tell them I am who I am, sent you. And of course, by all means, then, when we look at this, we see layer upon layer upon layer of why Moses is named Moses. It all means, when we boil it down, Moses was given to him as a royal Egyptian name. But it's a name that sounded very similar, and very conveniently similar in a good way, to this Hebrew meaning to draw out, because he was drawn out of the water. But isn't it beautiful that in Moses' larger story, we know that God worked through Moses to draw out God's people, the Hebrews, from Egyptian slavery through the wilderness and to the promised land. So again, the question that we were asking, why did you get your name? Why did you get your name? You may know, you may not know, you may know part of your name and how it originated. Perhaps you've had one or multiple of your names changed throughout the years, maybe through marriage, or maybe you were adopted, or you have a cultural practice in your family's history where you will have a certain name changed or attached at a certain point. But looking at Moses, we get a glimpse into how one of the most important people in our faith, the great teacher of the law, how he was named and why he was named that, and how there are even multiple meanings that we very easily miss in English, in the origins of how it all happened. So thanks again for joining with Beautiful Savior in Bloomfield Hills and with me, Pastor Nick. To learn more about our congregation, our website is bslcmi.org. And again, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and share the video with somebody that you think might find it helpful. Now, go out and love God and love your neighbors.